Hi guys, well we're at it again, Remote Learning 2.0. Really enjoyed the last 2 weeks of seeing your forced perspective. Many people understood the use of their space to create that optical illusion of something either looking much larger than it should or much smaller than it should. Well done. We're going to go in completely the opposite direction for the next 3 weeks. Note, it's the next 3 weeks. We're going to be doing some photorealism, so you're going to be working on something very accurately and looking for the detail. So let's get started. So what we're doing is we're going to make our name as a form. So that means it's going to be a 3D version of our name. If your name is short, you might put your grade, for example, 5W. You'll need at least 5 letters of some kind. So you're going to need an A4 white piece of paper, some strips, preferably black if you can, about 2 centimeters wide, but it does need to be a different color to the white. You might need a ruler, some scissors, a glue stick and a stapler. So I'm going to use my black strips to create my name. It needs to fit on the white page. So I need to cut it smaller than the whole size. I'm doing the K first. So I've got 2 strips here. And in this situation, I'm going to actually staple it in the middle because it's easier than gluing it. I'm going to staple it in the middle so that I'm going to cut it a little bit shorter, and I can bend one of the strips out to make the letter K for my name. It's a bit hard, it's hard to tell. So that's my K. Then I'm using another strip to create my E. And there's my E. And here's my R that I've already made earlier. Here's my name as a form. So now I've darkened off my room and I've put the torch on my camera so that I can create a shadow. You can see, depending on where I hold the light will depend on how big my shadow is. I don't want my shadow to be too big, but I don't want it to be tiny either. So I'm going to take a photo with my shadow. Okay, so this is the form of my name. I've created my little 3D letters. I've taken a photo using my mobile phone as a light to create shadow, and I've printed it off. It's totally up to you whether you work from a photo that's on your actual iPad or whether you just want to print it off onto paper. So now this is where we're going to be looking for accuracy and looking for the details and drawing photorealism. So I want to draw this exactly as it is. And one of the techniques that you can use to help you to look at what you're drawing and draw what you see, not what you know, is to actually turn the image upside down so that I can then start looking at the actual shapes rather than knowing the word Kerry. All right, so I've got some different sorts of pencils. At the moment, I want to be able to rub my work out if I make a mistake. So I'm going to use a pencil that is an H because it will not smudge, it's light, and it will rub out easily. So this is what I'm going to do. You can see I've done my frame. I've done it darker than I would normally do it. It's just so that you can see it on the video. I'm now going to start doing the letters of my name, and you can see I've got my work upside down so that I look at the shapes rather than the words or the letters. I'm going to start with the Y that's at this end, and if you look very, very closely, there are 3 different shapes. There is this long shape, there's a sort of triangular shape in here, and there's this curved shape. Don't worry about the shadows, you're just doing the letter. You can even use your finger to measure how far something is in. For example, I want to work out where the tail of the Y is. It's up to my middle knuckle of my finger there, and from the top of the paper it's only one segment of my finger. So that can help to work out exactly where the letter's going to go. And down the bottom you can see that it's a good full finger from the bottom. That gives me an idea of where to place my letter. I've now done all my letters upside down so that I can look at the shapes. So let's turn them around and see how I went for my accuracy. Oh, where is it? There we go. How does it look? Oh, pretty good. All right, so now I need to work out where the shadows are and just draw the outlines of the shadows. So I'm looking at the shadows, which is the lighter colour in the background, and I'm now looking at their shapes and adding those in to my work on here. So for example, on this E, there is a shadow that goes around there. Don't colour it in yet, just draw the outlines. And it goes all the way down to here. So I'm going to add it in. Don't be frightened to use a rubber if you need to, because you haven't got it quite right, because we are going for accuracy. I've now drawn all my shadows in, and if you were really, really looking hard, you will even notice there's little bits of white, which is the light reflecting underneath. Now that you've got your name mapped out as your letters and as your shadows, you now need to watch the video that shows you how to shade your work. There's 4 different techniques, and you can choose what you think is suitable for shading your different areas so that you're creating photorealism. Now that you've watched the video on shading techniques, you've noticed that there's 4 different techniques. The first one that they talked about was hatching, where you use just fine strokes in one direction to create your shading or your texture. There was also the cross hatching, where you went in different directions to create a texture like fabric. There was circulism, or another word for it is scumbling, where you're doing little tiny circles, which can make a surface look bumpy, or the more you do it, it can start to make something look soft. And there's also the contour shading, where you follow the shape of something. For example, in the video, they showed you lips and an apple. Okay, so that's contour shading. The other thing that you can do if you're using a nice soft pencil, something that does smudge really well, is once you've done the shading, you can always get a cotton bud and blend it to give it more of a smudgy textured look. Okay, so now it's time to use those shading techniques on your artwork. Okay. You do not have to pick one in particular. In fact, I would like you to try different shading techniques for the shadows and for your letters. Obviously, what's appropriate. For example, if I look back at my name Kerry, the actual letters are really dark. So I need to use a dark shading texture to get that effect. The shadows are lighter, so I need to pick something that would be appropriate for that. See how you go. I'm going to use some dense cross hatching to do my letter K so that it comes up quite dark. And what I'm doing to help myself not go out of the lines is I'm actually putting down another piece of paper along the edge of the K so I can cross hatch one direction so I'm not going outside my lines. Then I can put the paper on the other side. Just to show you how I'm going, you can see that my letter K is very dark, and what I did was I used a 6B pencil because it smudges and it's quite dark, and I used a cross hatching technique to make my colour quite solid in my K. Then I was doing the shadows next to my K, And I used the scumbling technique or the circulism technique, but I used an H pencil because it's harder and it's much lighter. Now, if you don't have different types of pencils, it's just a matter of you pressing harder or pressing softer to achieve the different tones. You can see I've also shaded in the outside area that is the same on my piece of paper here. I've even, if you'll notice, I've included, there's a little white tiny strip of light here on the K. It's a bit hard to see, but I've also included that white tiny strip because I'm also going for accuracy. I won't show you anymore. Have a go at using the different techniques of shading and see how your name comes up. Looking forward to the results.